Hi, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about the mind body spirit connection, but today we're going to talk about the body. So, with that being said, I know I said I was going to get back to my old setup, but I just felt inspired to sit out here on the porch. I just got back from the gym and felt that that was apropos as far as the starting point of this discussion. So, when we think of mind, body, spirit, like I've said in the past, our mind is our thoughts, our belief system. Our spirit is our emotions, our essence, where we hold inspiration, passion, any of those things. And then our body encapsulates both of them. So our body is an amazing machine in a sense because it's built to heal itself under the right circumstances, with the right input, if you will, right? And it's meant to carry us throughout life. So it's also meant to be a messenger in a sense. So this is something that I've been learning recently and tapping into because historically, as for anyone who's known me, I have historically been a little flighty in the sense, I don't mean flighty as in airhead, but I haven't always been grounded. I've always been somewhere in the future, planning ahead, my head in the stars, if you will. Or I would distract through fantasy, illusions, things like that. We all find our ways of distraction. For me, it wasn't necessarily through my body, it was through my mind. I've always had a pretty good imagination. So, with anything, we can use things adaptively, but we can use them maladaptively too. So, balance is key in life. Ooh, a beautiful cardinal just went by. That was so pretty. Anyway, so with regards to the body, it's important when we're trying to find that balance of recognizing when your body is communicating with you. Because what do they say? Listen to your body when it whispers so that you never have to hear it scream. Well, let me tell you something. Some people attribute it to age and other things. I think that's a cop-out for me anyway. I mean, to each his own. I think when we are in balance with all three, we age gracefully. More gracefully than if we're not in balance, let's put it that way. So recently, or since I've started this part of my journey, we never stop working in all three of these categories unless we give up on ourselves in a sense, because we're never going to be perfect, right? So there's always room for growth and learning new things, regardless of how far we've come or where we're going. But I have historically focused more on spiritual growth, mental growth, like reprogramming myself, stuff like that. All of these things I talk about are things that I have worked on in my own life, in addition to things that I've learned and read about so that I can apply them to myself and others in my work. But most of the things I have experience with. So because of that, there was a time in my early to mid 20s that I got in really good shape because I was in the Air Force. So at one point I was running like 2 to 6 miles a day, effortlessly. Didn't start that way though. I remember when I first started working out and getting myself to that place, one lap around a high school football field, the tracks that you see at the high school football fields, one lap of walking, I was gassed because I had like zero cardio. So I wasn't grossly overweight or anything, but I wasn't in shape. And I certainly didn't have cardio. I can tell you that. That's God's honest truth. So eventually I got myself where I could walk a mile, and then I could walk 2 miles, because I knew in basic training for the Air Force in the 90s, you had to be able to run 2 miles right through the gate, right away. So before I went into basic training, I wanted to make sure that I could at least do that, so that I wanted to give them as little cause as possible to scream at me. So in any case, I started there, and then I eventually got myself to a place where I could walk 2 miles, and then I'd run like the first lap and then walk. And, you start where you're at and you build on it until eventually I could run 8 laps. And, I just kept building on that. And then I was doing my push-ups, my pull-ups, my sit-ups, and all those other things. And I got myself in really good condition. However, that can be very grounding. Working out and being in your body and present in your body can be very grounding. But I had a lot of unhealed belief systems. So I only saw it as a means to an end. I didn't see my body as something that I loved or an aspect of myself that deserved nurturing and care. I just saw it as a means to an end, and that I could push it. And in your 20s, usually you can. So part of the work that I've been doing with reprogramming and, all this other stuff up to this point has been around those belief systems of worth and, just looking at my whole in a different light. So as I've gained more self-worth and understood my lessons and learned from them and grown through them and healed through them, processed them instead of avoiding them or ignoring them or seeing myself as some kind of a victim, if you will. Because there are times where we are victimized in life, but that doesn't mean we have to identify as a victim. We can validate ourselves and say, that was difficult, I was wronged, but what can I learn from that so that I can move forward, not by shutting down my heart or by mistrusting or being colder, but so that I can recognize the flags, the signs, and make sure that I'm making wise choices as I move forward in life. So again, you can see how everything's connected. But in any case, back to the body. Now, like last year when I sprained my ankle, as soon as I was falling down, because of that internal mental work that I've been doing, my first thought wasn't, oh, I'm being punished, or, oh, woe is me, or another obstacle, or another this. No, surprisingly, my first thought was, oh, what is this trying to teach me? What can I learn from this? And sometimes the message is simple as slow down. Maybe you're pushing yourself too hard. Or maybe you need to be more present so that you can see the dog toy that you're about to trip on. I think it was a combo, quite truthfully. It was a combination for me, because at the time I was pushing myself a little hard on certain things, and I wasn't being mindful, I was rushing, and I wasn't present. So another reason why presence is so important, because when we're present, we're more aware of our surroundings and can avoid pitfalls. Now, you'll hear me talk about avoidance, and avoidance isn't always good, but at the end of the day, if it's avoiding a potential pitfall, then that's not bad. But be mindful of the stories you're telling yourself around what pitfalls are, because some people will say, well, love is a pitfall, because maybe they've been burned and they haven't healed what love caused them to experience. However, I would then question, what is your definition of love? Because love is not painful. Love is healing. So maybe the perception was off, that this person loves me or I love them, but then there was mistreatment. That's not love. Sometimes that's just attachment. It can be control, manipulation. It can be toxicity. It can be all of the above. So again, be mindful of the stories you tell yourself around definitions of words, around why you believe what you believe, and is that serving you in a positive fashion, or is it hindering you? So in any case, back to the body. Tangents. But yeah, so now that I have more of an appreciation for my body and I'm listening to it and I'm not hating it, there are things I want to do with my body. I want to make it healthier. I want to make it more, what's the word? I can't think of the word. But I want it to give me more endurance so that I can do the things that bring me joy. Like, I want to be able to backpack across Europe if I want to be able to. Right now, I can't do that physically without pushing myself to the point of possible injury. So we have to condition ourselves, but we have to start where we're at. And oftentimes people struggle with that because there's a lot of self-judgment around where they're at. So if you go to the gym or something and you look in the mirror and all you have is all this negative self-talk, then it's probably going to be an obstacle for you to motivate yourself to go back because you're not giving yourself love. It was this great quote I read, and it says something like, exercise because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself. How we talk to ourselves, the mind piece, is really important with regards to goals, endurance, and what we're trying to accomplish in life. What beliefs are you feeding about yourself? I can't go out and run 2 miles right now. That doesn't mean I should hate myself for it. Did I make some mistakes along the way? Did I mistreat myself a little bit here and there? For sure. Welcome to the human race. We're all fallible, and I'm not using that as a cop-out, that it's okay to not give a crap about yourself or this or that. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. However, we're not expected to be perfect. We are expected to be, in a functional way, to be self-accountable. So if I recognize that I'm engaging in behavioral patterns that are hindering me in such a way, I'm not going to blame a sprained ankle or stupidity for tripping on a toy or other people for getting in my way or this, that, or whatever. No, that's just excuses. What I want to do is say, maybe I needed to slow down. And I wasn't, and that's okay because I wasn't grounded. But now I need to know that when I want to show up in a certain way, I need to do so intentionally. I need to hold myself accountable to create the life that I want to live. And I have to show up in that energy, which speaks more to the spiritual side, okay? But it all works together because the words and beliefs that we tell ourselves impact how we show up emotionally and how that sits in our body. So something as what we would call simple as a belief system can impact the emotions we have and whether or not we hold trauma in our body. And then that can impact our fascia, which is the connective tissue that goes around all of our muscles, skeletal systems, and everything. And trauma can be held in the body, as well as emotions will come out in the body. Stress comes out in headaches, can come out in ulcers, can come out in other ways. Chronic stress over time can diminish our immune system and therefore make us more susceptible to diseases and other types of physical ailments. It's not the number one cause necessarily, but it makes us more susceptible and vulnerable. So how do we manage stress? We manage stress through our thinking and the emotions that they impact. Because stress is much like overwhelm. It's a combination of things that we just feel disempowered, and therefore we're stressed because we feed the disempowerment, we feed the worry thoughts, we feed the what ifs versus, what ifs can be good or bad. Judgments, right? Positive, negative. What are you feeding in your life? And how is that coming out in your body? So I have recently, sorry, I'm getting buzzed here, but I have recently started challenging myself physically, because when we don't move, or we don't, you don't have to be able to go in and deadlift 300 pounds by any means. But over time, our bodies will stiffen up. It's kind of like a car. If you don't run your car, the engine is going to seize. It's meant to be driven. Highway miles are good, right? So if you go away for a long period of time, you want someone who's going to drive your car. If you're, leaving it and it's just going to sit there. My mechanic, my now mechanic's brother, God rest his soul, used to tell me that. He's like, make sure you drive in your car around COVID and everything, because he's like, I know you're not leaving the house much, but make sure you drive in your car, because it's going to deteriorate faster if you don't drive it. So the body is similar. If we're not moving, our joints stiffen up, things happen, our muscles degrade. There's all kinds of things. Most people are aware of this on some superficial level. If you're more curious, read into it. But movement is really important. However, it doesn't have to be where you push yourself to the point of possible injury, or to the point where you're biting off more than you can chew in the moment, and therefore it then diminishes your motivation. If I know I'm doing more than I really need to be doing, and it's creating more pain for me, then I'm probably going to be less inclined to motivate myself to go. So you start where you're at and you build on that. Some of the things that I have found beneficial for my body is, especially with, like I've said, Leo in my 6th house, I do red light therapies, I do sauna, I do salt room meditations. Meditation is really good for grounding and being present in the moment. I work with a functional practitioner who helps me with functional patterns. I'm starting a new, all of these things, the myofascial release, lymphatic release. All of these things have an impact. Drinking more water, not more, but just drinking the amount that I'm supposed to. Cutting back on things that aren't necessarily good for me, like caffeine, sugar, alcohol. I don't even really drink alcohol for the most part anymore, because that's also loaded with sugar. So balance, right? These are all ways to impact the body. I also find with me, sugar creates inflammation. So I have more uncomfortability in my body if I have too much sugar. Caffeine makes me more anxious. So it's kind of like I'm recognizing how things are impacting my body and realizing what feels good and what doesn't. So these are places to start and pay attention to and work with yourself out of love, because you're worth it. And your body is one aspect of yourself. It's not so much, I've never been one to care so much about how I look to others. My motto was always, if you don't like what you see, don't look. Right? I'm not out here to impress anyone. I'm just out here to live my best life, or try to. I don't wear makeup. It's uncomfortable to me. I wore it more when I was younger, but I've always had I can only wear certain makeups because my skin is really sensitive. And then I finally said, I just don't even like putting it on at all, so I just don't even wear it. You know, I color my hair for me because I like it. I'm not ready to go gray. And not any judgment on that, because I see women who look lovely with it, and I think I look lovely with it too, but I love my red, so I stick with my red. But I do that for me. I just like how it looks. It's kind of like my nails. I do my nails. I do that for me because I like looking at them and they put a smile on my face. I go through phases. Sometimes I like them short and nothing on them, but I'll eventually get back there. You know, sometimes being in flow is just being in the moment. How does this make me feel? Is it harming myself or anyone else? And if the answer is no and it makes me feel good, then why not? As long as I'm not breaking the bank or hurting myself in some other fashion, why not? Something like money, you can't take it with you when you go, so use it wisely. I'm not saying just spend it on everything. No, be responsible. That's an extension of your energy. You want to be responsible with it because it's something that we need to live a functional life and to do a lot of the things that make us happy. But at the end of the day, if it can make you happy and you're not being irresponsible, why not? I don't know. So anyway, back to the body. Oh my goodness. In my life, I have historically ignored my body. So you can see where I always drift off. But in any case, you know, much like with somatic healing and things like that, when you feel your stomach flutter or your heart race, sometimes we want to just recognize that and validate that for ourselves. There's great therapies out there like parts work, internal family systems, EMDR, emotional freedom technique, EFT, tapping, that helps you to acknowledge in the body and balance things out. And then, of course, I always say that remind yourself that you're safe and give yourself love. You know, make sure that when you are pushing through pain, right, that you're not injuring yourself and that it's not in an unhealthy way. Like if I have a sprained ankle, I'm not going to push myself through that unless the doctor tells me you're ready and it's going to hurt, but this is what you need to do for physical therapy, right? Well, things like that is really important. Sometimes it's going to be painful until it's not. And the same thing goes with like fascia. Initially, you know, as you start working on myofascial release, it hurts. Trust me. It doesn't tickle. But it's worth it because in that case, as long as you're doing it right and under proper instruction, eventually it won't hurt anymore. It's one of those things. So I had to start there before I could even get myself to the gym. But functional patterns, I'm finding, you know, when I first started going back and I got on the treadmill, I had pains in my feet and things like that. So it's like I'd push through that, but it was really painful. And then once I started learning more about functional patterns, I changed the way I was walking, and then the pain went away. And I was able to do longer. And it felt good. And that's why I do it. I'm not doing it now out of, I want to change my body. I don't like myself. That kind of energy gets you nowhere. It gets you nowhere with the goal of losing weight or changing your body. You have to do it from a place of, I don't know. It's going to be a little different for everyone. But for me, I have to find joy in it. I do. And I was really happy today, because I've seen gains already, and I'm not talking about weight loss or stuff like that. I've seen gains in how I feel physically, and that is far more important to me than how I look in a pair of jeans. Because again, when you find that love within yourself, that acceptance, that satisfaction, that gratitude, it matters very little what other people think about your path. It's not a competition out here on any level, whether that's career, whether that's physicality, whether that's attention. It's not a competition. You just have to go within and find your happy. And yes, your happy will trigger people, but that's not always a bad thing, because I believe triggers are portals, they're opportunities for growth. Because if we can recognize our triggers and sit with them, process them, heal them, they don't trigger us anymore, and we grow intentionally. And the better we show up for ourselves, the better we show up for other people. Because yes, we are all connected. And that's why people can be so triggering for you. But sit with that. And not out of a place of judgment on them or yourself, but more out of, what can I learn from this? What is this meant to teach me? Because much like physical pain in the body, triggers are there to teach you about you. Not because you're bad or rotten or any of these things that society will tell us or will tell ourselves. No, it's because you just have to learn. We all do. No one, again, is out here being perfect. And as long as we're willing to meet ourselves there and grow, then we will become better for it. Whatever better means to you. All right, that's my 25 cents. Ooh, I think this lighting's off because I don't have bags under my eyes. I'm just being silly. In any case, I gotta go shower, taking my son out. So you have a great day. It's gorgeous out, loving it, and I'll talk to you again soon. Peace out.